Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is March 9th, 2026, and we are going to read from Exodus chapter 20 and Luke chapter 23. Powerful chapters in both of those books. Because in Exodus 20, we're going to get the Ten Commandments. Now, they're at the bottom, the Israel people are at the bottom of Mount Sinai. God has descended down onto the mountain, much fanfare, and speaking where the people can hear him, and the people are terrified. But God's going to give them his 10 commandments, and he's going to give them the laws of the altar, how to build an altar to him. And he's starting to give them laws to build them into a nation, his nation, who's going to honor him the way God wants to be honored. So let's go ahead. We're going to read Exodus chapter 20. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. Now all the people witnessed the thunderings, the lightning flashes, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they trembled and stood afar off. And they said to Moses, You speak with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said to the people, Do not fear, for God has come to test you, and that his fear may be before you, so that you may not sin. So the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near the thickness and the darkness where God was. Then the Lord said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, You have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make anything to be with me, gods of silver or gods of gold you shall not make for yourselves. An altar of earth you shall not make for me. An altar of earth you shall make for me. That's a little bit different. And you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I record my name I will come to you and I will bless you. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone, for if you use your tools on it, you have profaned it. Nor shall you go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. So jump over to Luke 23. Then the whole multitude of them arose and led him to Pilate, the Sanhedrin leading Jesus to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ the King. And we know that Jesus didn't say any of that. In fact, he said, No, pay your taxes. Whose picture's on it? Well, pay him what's due him. Then verse 3. Then Pilate asked him, saying, Are you the king of the Jews? He answered him and said, Is it as you say? So again, Jesus doesn't admit to any of the charges. He just says, Hey, that's what you guys are calling me that. You guys think I am. Verse 4, So Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowd, I find no fault in this man. But they were the more fierce, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man were a Galilean, and as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. So he's trying to pawn him off on somebody else. Somebody else decide what to do with him. I don't want to. Pilate was not a very good ruler. He liked to antagonize the Jews, and then when the Jews revolted, Rome got mad at him, and so he would put it down, and then there would be a peace for a while, and then it would start all over again. So this is a time where Pilate is trying to appease the Jews for a little bit and give them something they want. But at the same token, he doesn't really like the Jews. Now, when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad. And Herod doesn't like the Jews either. For he had desired for a long time to see him, because he had heard many things about him, and he hoped to see some miracle done by him. And we know Herod thought, well, I think maybe he's John the Baptist come back to life. Then he questioned him with many words, but he answered him nothing. So Jesus doesn't even talk to Herod, doesn't even give him the satisfaction of saying, well, do you think I am? He just says nothing to him. And the chief priests and the scribes stood and vehemently accused him. And Herod, with his men of war, treated him with contempt and mocked him, arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him back to Pilate. That very day Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other. So the thing that brings them together is hating Jesus. Then Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, said to them, you have brought this man to me as one who misleads the people. And indeed, having examined him in your presence, I have found no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. No, neither did Herod, for I sent you back to him. And indeed, nothing deserving of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For it was necessary for him to release one to them at the feast. Now that's a tradition, that they would release somebody at Passover, one of the prisoners. And Pilate is saying, hey, this guy's innocent. Look, I'll beat him up for you and let him go, but he's innocent. We like to beat people up. We're Romans. Verse 18, and they all cried out at once, saying, away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city, and for murder. Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus, again called out to them, but they shouted, saying, crucify him, crucify him. Then he said to them the third time, why, what evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. But they were insistent, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified. These same people that were saying, oh, Hosanna, Hosanna, when he came in, are now yelling, crucify him. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested. So he condemns Jesus to death, even though Jesus is innocent in his eyes. But he just wants to do it to stop this rioting. And he released to them the one they requested, Barabbas, who for rebellion and murder had been thrown into prison. But he delivered Jesus to their will. Now as they led him away, they laid hold of a certain man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming from the country. And on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus. Now, usually for crucifixion you would bear your own cross. That was important. So that signifies that while they were beating him, they beat him a little too much, and he couldn't quite do that. And a great multitude of the people followed him, and women who also mourned and lamented him. But Jesus, turning to them, said, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, blessed are the barren, wombs that never bore, and breasts which never nursed. Then they will begin to say unto the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For they do these things in the green wood. What will be done in the dry? There were also two others, criminals, led with him to be put to death. And when they had come to the place called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on the right and the other on the left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And they divided his garments and cast lots, and the people stood looking on. But even the rulers with him sneered, saying, he saved others, let him save himself if he is the Christ, the chosen of God. The soldiers also mocked him, coming and offering him sour wine, and saying, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. And an inscription also was written over him in letters of Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, this is the king of the Jews. Then one of the criminals who were hanging blasphemed him, saying, if you are the Christ, save yourself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, do you not even fear God, seeing you are under the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, assuredly I say to you, today you'll be with me in paradise. Now we see Luke's account is different than Matthew's and Mark's. Why? Well, again, Luke is writing for a Gentile audience. Luke is writing an account that has witnesses, that he corroborates with the witnesses, and that you should be able to go back and talk to people and get that idea. of what happened. Matthew is writing from his own perspective as an apostle. Mark is writing from Peter's perspective as an apostle. So they would have had different things that they were listening for and what they heard and how it affected them. They probably, the apostles and the family, started at the foot of the cross when it started, and then as it got really bad and ugly and nasty and brutal, they were either pushed back or they stepped back. So what they could hear in different times would have been different. The two thieves on the cross probably started off both mocking Jesus, and then in Luke's account we see that one of them repents and says, you know what, this is not right. This guy is something special and this shouldn't be happening. Verse 44. Now it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. But they all agree on these little details. Then the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. And when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. Now there's some differences there. Matthew and Mark give us the psalm. Luke wants us to see that Jesus gave up his spirit. You could have hung on that cross for a long time when you're crucified, but this went really quick. And he wants us to see that it was Jesus that decided, okay, this is the time for me to die, and he dies. He was in control the whole time. Verse 47, so when the centurion saw what had happened, he glorified God, saying, certainly this was a righteous man. And the whole crowd who came together to that sight, seeing what had been done, beat their breasts in return. But all his acquaintances and the women who followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching these things. Now behold, there was a man named Joseph, a council member, a good and just man. He had not consented to their decision indeed. So he's in part of the Sanhedrin, but he didn't agree with the crucifixion, but he allows it to happen. And it's now that he's coming forward to say, no, I'm a Christian. So you kind of compare him to Peter, who was vocally a supporter of Jesus until he was arrested and said, oh, who him? I don't know him. So the different ways that people responded to Jesus' death. Verse 52, this man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen, and laid it in a tomb that was hewn out of the rock where no one had ever lain before. That day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew near. And the women who had come with him from Galilee followed after, and they observed the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices, fragrant oils, and they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment we just read in in Exodus. May God bless the reading of his word, and may God bless you. Bye.